All right. Kevin in Philadelphia, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Pretty good.
It's nice to talk to you guys. Thanks for the forum. Much appreciated.
You're welcome. What do you got for me?
I've probably watched about 20, maybe 25 of your episodes over the last 4 or 5 years. I am not a believer in any traditional organized religion whatsoever. Mm-hmm. I was a philosophy major at college, and I just don't think any of those stand up. But I do feel that after years of agnosticism, that the medical research, a lot of the evidence in the area of near-death experience is very, very compelling, and I think...
Compelling towards what conclusion?
Towards consciousness outside of the brain and an afterlife.
Okay, how so?
Many reasons, and in many medical journals, the different parts of near-death experiences, as far as people being clinically dead, no gag reflex, no pupillary action, no heartbeat, respiration, brainstem activity, flatlined, and yet they still have experiences. And
do they?
What's that?
Do they?
Well, they have experiences that can be verified out of body. And
see,
those things.
The thing is, you're claiming that they have experiences, and what I see happening is when they are revived, they talk about an experience, but we have no way of knowing whether or not we should place that experience during the time that they were dead, or, first of all, death isn't necessarily, death is a process, and one that we don't necessarily know a lot about, but these sort of out-of-body experiences that people have near death are things that you can actually test. You could, set something up high where you could only see it if you were floating at the top of the room, and see who actually reports that it's there.
Yeah.
And that isn't something that's actually borne out. What we get are things like, I felt like I was seeing this, and I heard this. Well, whether or not the brain was functioning on some level or not, we don't know. But I find it unrealistic to put much stock in what a damaged and dying brain is reporting. Because even if they're experiencing something, we don't know that what they're experiencing is necessarily tied to an out-of-body, soul-like experience. And it doesn't give us information about an afterlife, because people tend to, by and large, there are exceptions, but people tend to see the religious imagery and the afterlife imagery that they've been told about in their lifetime. Quite often the one that is the predominant religion that they already believe in or are surrounded by.
Well, actually, if I can make a few points on what you just said.
Sure.
The out-of-body experiences are verified as far as 97.5% verification of reality of what was occurring at that time. So there are timestamps.
Where'd you get that number real quick?
Dr. Jeffrey Long, who studied it for over 20 years.
Okay.
Further, they've noticed things that were happening in real time, not only in a hospital area or in a house where they passed away, or a car, or in the ocean, or at the bottom of a lake, and things that were happening far away from that area at the same time. But they also see relatives, close friends who have passed away, and why would they see that? Why would they see deceased relatives only? Because it's virtually deceased relatives. Why wouldn't they?
Now, I don't know how we confirmed that they're seeing something that happened at the bottom of a lake at the same time that they were dying.
No. I'm saying at the time that they were, like if someone drowned and they were under a lake for 30 minutes in cold water, things that happened during that 30 minutes or 1 hour that they were definitely in the water, maybe a mile away, they have verified those things. They verified what an ambulance driver and his partner who jumped in the paramedic van had said, the conversation they had. These type of things happen all the time.
So I'd have to actually look at the actual cases, and
there's many.
I know there's many, and I've looked at some of them. I don't know the actual case that you're talking about, but there's any number of ways where memory is incredibly unreliable and can be constructed after the fact, and it's not hard to guess, for example, or presume what some sorts of conversations might have. But at the end of the day, even if everything were verified out and accurate, what we would have is an unexplained occurrence. There's no justification for jumping to actual consciousness outside of a body that is going to persist in an afterlife.
I think that the other point that you were making about death is a longer kind of an occurrence. It's not a finite point in time. Actually, clinical death is, in fact, a finite point in time. And
no,
what happens?
Not.
What happens is the
no,
cell.
It's not.
Yes.
It's just not. I mean, if you go look at what actual medical doctors are saying about death, what we've been saying for years now is that the more we find out about death and the process of dying, the more we discover that it's not necessarily a finite point. Now, obviously, if you've been rotting in the ground for a while, you've been dead. But the fact that the brain stops, everything could be stopped, and you would be dead, and yet still be capable of being revived.
Yeah, well, that's what I was just about to say. Death is a finite point in time. As far as clinical death, where there's degradation of the processes in the brain, absolute, positive, 100% degradation. And yes, there are times, 20 minutes later, a certain time later, where what happens is the cells are viable. They are still viable to be possibly resuscitated. However, they are not viable for conscious thought, for memories, etc. After clinical death, that's not possible. So these things are happening with timestamps after that.
Sure, and the people that are revived are reporting things later. I see no justification for saying that those were experiences that occurred during the non-viable period, rather than these are, things invented by a brain or piecing together bits and pieces after the fact to construct a story. That is, after all, what our brains tend to do.
Yeah, if they were invented by the brain, though, they would be elements of the brains, of our history, of our memory. And as one example of many, many examples, the fact that they see, as I said, deceased relatives. If this was just a product
how do you know
of the
they
memory,
saw? So you keep saying they saw deceased relatives. Well, they reported. I've had people who weren't dead report that they've seen deceased relatives. That doesn't mean they're actually seeing deceased relatives.
Well, the fact that they've seen people that were oftentimes dead before they were born, who, when they described it to family, someone they've never heard of before, accurately describing.
I don't buy that. I don't buy that.
Because
you don't have to be dead to hear stories like this. I've heard stories, actually, and I'm not going to get them quite right, but from people that I know who, my great-grandfather died long before I was born, and so-and-so had nightmares at night, and they kept having this old man keep coming in and appear to be sitting with them, and there was even supposedly an indention in the bed where that individual sat. And then when they finally tell the story to everybody, oh, well, what did he look like? Well, he kind of looked like this. And then all of a sudden they pull out a picture, and yes, that's the person. But there's no way to confirm that they had this experience and actually saw that individual, rather than that the brain is piecing these things together and manipulating memory after the fact.
Okay.
How do you set up a study to protect against that sort of thing?
Well, I think it validates itself in a much simpler sense when you realize that, you can say, oh, well, maybe they were just dreaming of a deceased relative. And they talk about details when they have known the relative, like, oh, my uncle taught me how to play guitar, and I saw him. He was the first person I saw. So they are definitely seeing this particular person. And if you say it's a dream or hallucination that they're seeing a person, okay, let's say it is. But it doesn't make sense that it is, because...
Why not?
I'm about to tell you. Because virtually all near-death experiencers are seeing and communicating with only deceased relatives. Now, there's no reason that the brain would, sort out a file of only deceased people. Why?
How do you know?
Because if it was memories, it would give you memories over millions of near-death experiences. There would certainly be some of them that they were communicating with people that were alive on Earth.
No, you just talked about somebody who at the bottom of the lake was talking about seeing what was going on with the paramedics that were out to see them. So it's not all just dead relatives.
No. That's seeing things, noticing things when they first, pass away. I said communicating with, once they go through the tunnel or across the lake or...
It's the same thing. It's just a claim.
No, I'm saying once they go further into the death, after the body has clinically died, and they go through the tunnel and they leave this earth, they only see deceased relatives. They never see people that are alive.
I see no justification for making these claims that they have left this earth or gone through a tunnel.
Well, let's say it was a dream. Why are they dreaming this and only seeing deceased relatives?
That is an argument from ignorance fallacy. You're saying, let's say it's a dream. You're basically saying, can you come up with a better explanation? And until you do, this one here is justified. And that's a fallacy. That's not the way reason works.
Well, no, this is just one of many points of evidence that points towards what I'm saying.
It's one of many claims. You have no actual foundation, no epistemologically sound foundation for reaching conclusions. The best that you could say is we have a lot of reports of things, and we don't know what's going on.
Well, I'm looking at logic and reasoning. I'm saying,
Me too.
Why would millions of cases, why would they only communicate with deceased
I don't know that that's necessarily true, but even if it were, that doesn't tell you the answer. You're asking, why would it be this way? And that's a good question. Why don't we discover why rather than reaching...
That's just one piece of the many pieces of evidence in near-death experience. That's only one thing. There's many. There's blind people that have been able to accurately describe things visually, people that were blind since they were a fetus. Now, that's medically inexplicable.
Okay, so yes, it's inexplicable. So stop explaining it or claiming that you have an explanation for it. That's the point. If something is inexplicable, we need to go look for an explanation. We do not just say, you know what? This seems to be kind of like there's a soul and an afterlife, so I'm going to go with that until some other explanation comes along. That's just a big old fat fallacy.
No. I'm not saying just, oh, well, this is that, and so there's an afterlife. I'm putting many pieces together.
It doesn't matter. The plural of anecdote is not data.
I think that it's pretty heavy as far as the amount of it. And
it doesn't matter. You can go talk to real live people right now who will tell you their alien abduction story.
Right.
There are lots of them, tons of them, and some of them share lots of details. Do you believe they're actually being abducted by aliens?
I would tend to be skeptical about it. I can't say 100% of them are.
I'm not asking for 100%. I'm saying, do you believe them?
I don't think I would believe all of them.
So some of them you might believe?
I might believe some.
Okay. Why?
If the evidence was very strong, I might believe some.
Okay, but you're talking about claims. You're not talking about evidence. See, here's this event that occurred, and we need an explanation for this event. And you're providing no evidence for the explanation. You're just providing more and more and more claims that fit another claimed explanation, but you're not providing evidence for that explanation. There's no mechanism for this. And from what we know about how the brain works, everything that makes me me is in my brain, my personality, my preferences, my likes. We know from brain-damaged individuals what happens. You can reset personalities, you can reset memories. You've got split-brain patients where one of the two personalities is a theist and the other one is an atheist. There are all these things about the brain that demonstrate that there's no good reason to think that there's anything like a soul, and no good reason to think that the consciousness exists absent that brain.
Oh, I completely disagree, but what about what you said about having a picture above the ceiling?
Sure.
That's already been done. It's being done in Sam Pardia, PhD, MD Sam Pardia, the resuscitation expert. He's already been doing that for 3 to 4 years, and the study will be done in 2 years. And what they have done is...
Call me in 2 years.
Well, I'm already giving you some of the information that's come out already. And it will complete in 2 years. But already he's let out some information.
Because that makes a good study.
Yeah, and what they do is...
That was irony, or sarcasm, sorry.
Yeah, I know it was. What they do is they put a computer screen facing the ceiling with photographs, random photographs that are constantly blinking and changing, and it's connected to a computer with timers, digital timers.
Okay.
So when the person passes away, clinically dead, if they are, successfully resuscitated at a later time, and they mention that, I came out of my body, etc., I floated above the room. The point is, in the study, in this one part of a very large study, is to ask them, did you see something? What was it? And if they say, I saw, blue
Well,
flowers.
that's already a flawed methodology. Asking them if they saw something implies that they should have, and so now people are going to be guessing, and some percentage of those are going to get it right.
No.
Yes.
If they start saying
that is the very example of a flawed study. You're asking a leading question. It's like asking a little kid, who supposedly has had past lives. Well, did you see anything at all like this, or do you remember anything like this? It's guiding.
That's not what I said. What I'm saying is, if the person says they had an experience, and the doctors say, okay, what happened? What did you see?
That's not what you said the first time.
Well, then I made a mistake.
Okay. In any case, I got a bunch of callers waiting. When the results of the study come out, or if you have other results, feel free to email me. I'm not buying it.
They have come out, and I'm just telling you that Dr. Parnia said, as far as those parts of it, it looks positive.
Okay, cool. And I think you can point to all kinds of doctors who will say all sorts of things look positive. But let's get it published. Let's get some peer review on it. Who knows? Maybe they'll get a Nobel Prize for actually discovering this.
He's a skeptic. He's always been a skeptic, Dr.
I don't care. People claim to be skeptics all the time. That doesn't mean that they're better thinkers. It doesn't mean they're even good at being a skeptic. Mm-hmm. What we need to see is the evidence and have it analyzed by a bunch of people. And at the end of the day, if his study showed that a significant high percentage of people who had reported having these out-of-body experiences were actually accurate in reporting what they saw, that still doesn't tell us what the explanation is. It is just a demonstration that there is now a real phenomena there that we can then go try and study.
Well, it would prove consciousness outside of the body.
No, we haven't. No, we haven't, because you haven't exhausted all the potential explanations. You've not demonstrated consciousness out of the body. Well, at that point, you've demonstrated a phenomena that is worthy of further investigation.
To you, what would demonstrate actual factual proof of consciousness out of the body?
I don't know.
I mean, can you give one piece that would convince you?
I just said I don't know. Okay.
All right. Well, thanks for the opportunity to talk.
Sure.
Have a good day.
You too.